Welcome to the Wellness Hub, where I have been interviewing experts in the field of health, wellness, and healing for the past 5 years. My name is Moni C. I'm a mindset coach, and I help women shift their negative programming into positive lifelong habits. And sometimes their negative thoughts make them develop eating disorders. And today, this is what our next guest specializes in. Today, we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Nardozzi. She's a psychologist who specializes in eating disorders, and she's the founder of the FAB program, the Food and Body program. Dr. Jen, thank you so much for being here. Please tell us a bit about yourself and about what you're doing today to help people from around the world. The floor is yours.
Oh, well, Monica, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here today. I love having these conversations about wellness. And I will say, I think this idea of wellness is a lifelong journey. I don't know about you, but I'm on this wellness path. And our relationship with food and our body is a lifelong relationship, right? Like that never stops for as long as we live, right? And
Absolutely.
so, just to say a little bit more is that, I don't think I knew 100%, right, that I was going to become a psychologist. I didn't know I was going to work in eating disorders, right? I'm always amazed when these young people already know like exactly what they want to do. And my path really was not exactly like that. And maybe on another podcast, we'll kind of talk about that journey of like finding your way in terms of becoming kind of an entrepreneur. But what always called to me is making a difference for people. That I knew I was going to do with my life. And I will say, I actually met with a group of eating disorder professionals this morning. And one thing I said at that breakfast, and I'll say it again here, is why I love this work so much is because it is challenging, right? It's like challenging sometimes to find the solutions, to find the way out of these struggles because, who doesn't understand struggling with your food or struggling with your body? All of us are on a spectrum somewhere. And with our program, we specifically work with people whose struggles are so intense that it really starts impacting kind of every area of their lives. It starts affecting their physical health, their medical status, their relationships, their relationship with self, their mental health, like everything starts to become affected. So our mission statement is really about helping people transform their relationship with food and body, like letting go of the barrier of their eating disorder to then be able to live their joyful, fulfilling life. So that's really our bigger mission with the Food and Body program with FAB.
That's wonderful. And who are your clients? Women, men, mostly women?
Mm-hmm. So I will say when I first started Fab, it was only women because that's sort of what I knew more of. When I worked, I always say the first half of my career was working at a treatment center that it was the first treatment center in the entire country for eating disorders. And now there's hundreds and hundreds of these centers because this problem is not actually getting better. It is getting worse, even though there are more resources and ways to get help. But at that center, it was all women. And so when I started Fab, I was like, I'm going to focus on women. But I will say a couple years into it, when I started getting phone calls from men, I was like, well, why would I not offer services to men too who are struggling with their food and their body? So I will still say the largest percentage of people we work with are female. So we work with as young as right now, 12, and we've had people in their 70s. So all along the spectrum in terms of like ages and development. So That is our audience. So it's really somebody who is wanting guidance. It's somebody that has really been struggling with these problems and wants to work outpatient because we're an outpatient program. And they're really wanting to go deeper inside to understand, well, what is this struggle all about? Because, Monica, something I say is like, our food, our relationship with food, our relationship with body, with self, it is like a mirror for something else in our life. And so, we want to help people go on that deep dive to really understand, well, what on this deeper level are they here to discover so they can transform the problem? And so that's what I do with my amazing multidisciplinary team.
How many people do you have in your team right now?
So we have 5 clinical people on the treatment team. So, and these are really wonderful people who are dedicated. Some of them have had their own struggles to whatever degree with their own eating issues. And then we have several like background people, right? And I say background, but people not delivering the care, but to have an entire program, you have all kinds of people, right? Like somebody who's checking the insurance and trying to help families use their insurance benefit for this treatment. And we have different marketing people we work with. But in terms of the clinical program, we have, I call it the Fab Five, and then we also have a coach because another thing that I think is so important is that we're also doing our own work as a team, right? Because I'm a believer we only take people as far as we're going to go. So if we're not doing that deeper work that I'm talking about that we're asking our clients to do, it's like, well, at some point, it's like it stops in
Yeah,
some way, like, right?
there's a
So
limit. Yeah.
yeah, there's a limit. So
Mm.
the coaching is, I feel, really important. So I do my own coaching with this mindset coach,
Yeah.
and then she also does coaching with our whole team.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Mhm.
do you do the consultations and online too? You do both in
Yeah, we
person
can
and
do both. So what I always say is the program is hybrid. So there's options for in person, and then there's also options for Zoom. And sometimes we have people who are, they might be in Miami, but they may be like, today, Dr. Jen, I have I don't know, a test to study for. Would you mind if we do Zoom? So I like to give people options and have that flexibility. So that's how we do it. So usually the first step is, if somebody is listening to this and they're like, oh, do I need this? Am I a fit? I mean, I always tell people get on our website, take our 2-minute quiz. It goes through a list of questions. It takes, I mean, it's so quick. And then they can set up a consultation with me and we can just talk it out. Like we can talk out what they've been going through, no pressure whatsoever. Sometimes people choose to work with us, sometimes they see something else for themselves and another direction to go. And what I'm committed to is sometimes people find me because they're supposed to work with me and the team, and sometimes I'm just helping them navigate to their next step that might be independent. I might just be a little stepping stone on the path.
that's wonderful. And this link is going to be under our interview. So don't worry if you look for it. Plus all your other contact information from your website and where can people find you, your social media.
Hmm.
Dr. Jen, um, so the FAB program is basically, it encompasses different areas of the, it's food and body. So what is the body part, for example?
So, because oftentimes what people will say when they come to see me, right? Every person's eating issue is going to be different. But many times people will say that this started off because, I didn't really like something about my body, or, oh, I was just, wanting to start a diet and lose a few pounds. Like that's a common thing we hear in our society. And then somewhere that diet started going really awry for the person. And usually, right there, as we start really understanding that journey for them, usually there was some kind of precipitant before the eating issues started. So something, big for the person, whatever that might mean. That can look like very different things for different people of what were those triggers that kind of started them off. But the body part is like, like I'm not feeling so comfortable with certain things about my body. So one area we're always working on is body image. So that's one area of body. The other thing I always say is so important. So if anybody's listening to this, is we always ask people to work with a medical doctor, and ideally a medical doctor who knows these issues. Why? Because when you're, dealing with your food and maybe you're restricting or binging or whatever version, purging or overexercising can be one that people can sometimes minimize. It starts really affecting your body, sometimes on every level. So that is such an important part that we always are collaborating and integrating the medical care into the team as part of the treatment. So that body piece is so important.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
one more question, since we
Sure.
don't have a lot of time. Unfortunately, I would spend hours with you. How many do you think of the cases that you have seen are their disorders, that the disorders that they have are caused by trauma or childhood trauma?
Mhm. Well, you know how I said there's like that precipitant, right? There's that trigger that happens. So sometimes that trigger is what we think of, I say capital T, right? Like somebody's gone through physical abuse or sexual abuse, emotional abuse, some kind of like, and then sometimes the trauma is maybe a smaller T, but not small for the person. Like I always think about this one early client that I worked with. And this was even before you heard a ton about like bullying, right? Now you hear a lot of anti-bullying, but this is even before all of those campaigns or what you would hear. And this kid really felt like, I mean, tortured sounds like a dramatic word, but she just felt like she was so made fun of by the other kids at her school. And she also was like a very sensitive kid and a very like shy kid. And that was very traumatic for her. So I think the other thing that's so important is you have to find out, well, how did that affect that individual person? But usually there is something, or I'll say some things that triggered that person going down that road. It does not come out of the blue, right? What we say is it's converging factors. There's often genetic factors, there's familial factors, there's, that kind of precipitant. And then, of course, there's these environmental factors because we're kind of in this culture, unfortunately, that's ripe for creating these food and body struggles.
And it was supposed to be my last question, but see, I have another one.
One more.
Have you seen an increase in these cases over the last, especially right after the pandemic, of these
Yes.
cases?
Yes, we did. And we were actually talking about that this morning at that breakfast I went to with the professionals, is for sure. Because, right, during times of stress, this is when people are turning to this eating issue, eating disorder as a way of coping. Because that's really, I know I'm simplifying it, saying it this way, but it becomes like a major coping skill for the person. So during the pandemic, like who didn't have feelings about what was going on, right? We were an entire world that was like struggling, trying to understand what was going on. So most of us therapists, eating disorder specialists or not, our cases were full, right? And then those with that specialize in this area, I remember it was like I was getting calls from people I hadn't heard from for years. It's like, oh my gosh, Dr. Jen, can you see this person? And we were referring back and forth because it really spiked during that time. So that is a great question.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Jen, our time is up, unfortunately, but I really wanted to thank you for coming here and sharing your knowledge and your thoughts. And thank you for helping people around the world. And I will see you again soon. So
Definitely, Monica. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love having these conversations. I know you and I could have gone on for another hour, and we're not going to do that to the
yes,
listeners, but I will definitely come back. I'd love to do that.
thank you so much. And for everybody watching, you're going to have all her information down below. Thank you again, and until next time.